There I am. Hey, everybody. I got hearts already. Someone gave me hearts. HT Mademoiselles. Hi. Hi. How are you? More hearts. Yay. I love the hearts. Ian says, hello, everyone. So, HT, does that mean there's multiples of you? Since you have an S at the end of Mademoiselle? Mm-hmm. It's a they. Oh, I've got 4 people at least. Welcome. Looks like today at least we got on, and so far everything is working. Arcane says, hello, hello. Hi, Arcane. HT says, it's just me. Laugh out loud. Just thought I'd check. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian. How was your week? Plumbing all up and running? Yes.
Yes, not. I still have to fill in the hole and pack some root killer in there. I'd be doing that today if we didn't have a live show right now.
Right, but
It's
the
all
main
repaired.
sewer line has now been repaired. New plumbing has been put in place, and everything is running like it should. So,
Yep.
yay!
So awesome.
Now it's just the putting it back together and covering up the hole, or filling in the hole. We have it covered up with a piece of plywood so someone doesn't accidentally fall in. And Carla says, hi, everyone. Erin says, hello. Carla says, wonderful. Yes, very wonderful. That's been one of the things that Ian has worried about over the years, that there would be something wrong with our main line.
Yeah, because it's thousands of dollars to get one repaired, but we got lucky and had some friends help us who are actual experts on the subject because I didn't have enough knowledge about how to do that kind of plumbing, not down to the street. So
Yep.
yeah, so instead of paying thousands of dollars, we paid for parts, and these gentlemen, one of whom is a subscriber of ours, is wow. I can't tell him how much I appreciate that.
Well, he might be on right now and hearing that.
Yeah, so
So
good.
if you are, thank you very much. And it turns out that I did a paranormal investigation for him years ago that's still working. So yay for that. That was one of those interesting investigations. He was being attacked by a very angry female spirit who believed that all men were evil because someone had murdered her who was a man. So at least that's what I remember. It was kind of an intense situation, so I'm glad it worked. Gabrielle says, hey. Hi, Gabrielle. Yep. Carlos is wonderful. Yes, it's very wonderful.
Yes.
Ah, and relieved. Teresa says, howdy from Canada. Hi, Teresa. Welcome. So, yes, a lot of our summer projects are getting done. This was an unexpected one that was not on the list.
But it looks like it's needed done for years and years.
Many, many, many years, probably since well before we bought the property.
It's been growing in that sewer until finally that was it.
Yep.
Clogged up entirely.
It plugged up everything and nothing was getting by. Jennifer S. says, hello. Hi, Jennifer. Carla says, I was super happy to see that all worked out. Yes. Whew. What a relief. Carla says, upgrades, upgrades. Yeah. Gabrielle says, I had an experience a few days ago and haven't been able to function. It was shocking. Oh, well, I'm glad that you're here today. I hope you're doing better. If you hadn't been able to function, I'm sure you can tell us if you want to, but not. Robert Enley says, Hails, I am back. Hails all. Hails, Siofra. Hi, Robert. Welcome back. I'm going to get everybody back today. It's a good day.
Yes.
You betcha. Shocking experiences, they can be interesting, enlightening, and exhausting, and frightening, and all that other stuff. So, it's been the summer for it. Robert says, what's the topic of the day? The weather? Haha. I don't know. There's certainly plenty of that around. Teresa says, where were you, Robert? Our weather is hot and muggy. Carla says, Ian, this is going to be a pain in the butt type question, but how many pages does your Manly Hall book have in it?
Well, it's not much of a pain in the book, but heck.
Robert says, how to know our patron animal spirit? Well, it will give you signs. In dreams or real life experiences with Ian, see, patron animals, I'm not sure exactly what that particular definition is. If you're talking about totem animals or spirit animals, I'm sure one of the two. It's like I met mine in real life and in a dream. And Ian, when Coyote claimed him, just sort of appeared in his meditation and walked right up to him and stuck his nose on your nose. Was it nose to nose?
No, he didn't actually touch me. That was a horse.
Oh, okay. I thought Coyote claimed you that way.
No, he told me. Totem animal. So, not counting the index, this one ends at CCIV.
That's 206.
Yep.
And then the index brings it to
CCXLV.
XLV, that'd be 16.
Well, I don't know. I think L is a 50, so it would be 55.
Okay.
And X.
Robert says totem animal, yes.
265, I think that would be.
Gabrielle says, I went to some dimension with a lot of freshly dead human spirits, and many of them didn't want to cross over. They were still processing that they were dead. I saw lights in my room, left my body, and ended up there trying to help them move on to the next stage. They were content being earthbound. Many of those deaths were traumatic. Yes, that can happen. That's quite an interesting experience when it happens, though it's sort of intense. Being able to open up the portal to the other side to show them where they want to go is helpful, I find. Robert says, a tremendous experience, Gabrielle. Teresa says, nose to butt is how the friendliest of canines do it. Robert says, is it true our first name can give us our whole karmic story in advance? I doubt it, considering the fact that our first name is usually given to us by our parents who don't know anything about us.
I've come across things like that, and I don't buy into it at all. You can look around. I used to have it somewhere. I don't remember what, the letters of your name and all that, what it's supposed to mean for you. But with the way we give English names, no, I don't think it's,
Yeah, I don't think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Carla says, thank you, Ian. I'm going to get the book, but different printings of the same book have different page counts.
Well, I'll tell you why. And that's because, like this one, this is a really tall book. This one is really tall and it won't fit on my bookshelf. So it has each page has way more words on it than a standard page in a book. So I'm sure it depends a lot in the vertical format. This is probably about the height of two books stacked on top of one another, depends on the size of the book,
books.
two standard size, like stack two paperback books end on ends, and this one is that tall.
Gabrielle says, I think these are some of the human spirits that haunt my place. I think what was shocking was just how sad I thought their situation was, but they were not as distraught as I felt. Huh. Robert says, why do we see number 1 or number 2, etc. on the comments? That's a YouTube thing. Apparently they've decided that people like to see where they are in the standing of comments. There's supposed to be a crown and number 1 and number 2 and stuff like that. Pay no attention to it whatsoever.
Basically, it's just who has made the most comments. It has nothing to do with us, and I'd probably disable it on our site if I could.
But we can't.
Well, it's not my site, technically.
On our channel, let's say.
Yeah.
So Unimog says something in a language that I can't read, so you're going to have to translate that into English if you want me to answer it. Gabrielle says, one of them helped me calm down and told me to live my life and not worry about them and got me to go back in my body. Well, that's nice. Robert says, for a few seconds I lost the feed. Sorry, we didn't, so that's good. Carla says, this is going to sound crazy, but I think my cat told me she puked out a hairball this morning. I know how that just sounded. Trying to keep you informed. It's not a bad thing. And Robert says, I know the feeling, Carla. Carla says, that's good information, Ian. I'll look at the measurements, too.
And it's not that that's necessarily crazy because I had bees speak to me once, and that was very interesting because they clearly bees do not have that intelligence within them, but there's a consciousness there, an oversoul, if you want to call it, and that's what was communicating and wondering about me and wondering what I was doing there and stuff. So everything kind of has an oversoul, so you might have rocks speak to you or possibly anything else, and it's just a matter of being tuned into it, having that ability, and being on a harmony with them at the time. In fact, just working on harmony with things in nature can give you the ability to hear from a lot of them.
Yeah.
I've gotten spoken to by various things at various times, including a pine tree once, and a poisonous flower, and some other things.
Volunteering to help you get out of your body.
Well, yeah, it would have done that.
Yeah, by killing you.
But if a plant tells you it's good for something, always look it up first and make sure, medically that it's safe to use.
No kidding. Robert says, I had a weird experience with a rat stuck in the wall. Those creatures have a certain psychic telepathy power, let me tell you. And Carla says, Robert, I believe it. And Robert says, yeah, it was trying to communicate. And that's the thing, it's like things are always trying to communicate. There's languages that we just don't understand or are tuned into. And I think the more sensitive we become, the more likely, like Ian was saying, that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, when I communicate like that, it like with the bees, it actually entered my brain, and I knew what it meant. My brain immediately interpreted into words. So to me, it seemed like the bees flying by me were communicating at the times.
Well, that's how telepathy works. So
yeah. Anyway, that was all on that.
Gabrielle says, I listened to what the spirits had to say. I held some child spirits and they were just playing and unbothered. I also saw the spirits helping the other ones who had just passed, so they take care. I think just having the experience brought up some fears of death and the unknown, and also being aware of human suffering. Yeah. Robert says, yes, that is probably true, Ian. Ickle says, good evening, folks. Hi, Ickle. Welcome back. Carla says, I've heard trees, Ian.
Yep.
Robert says, poison flowers? I wish there could be a cloaked veil I can wear like Harry Potter and go to the bank.
Now this was it was actually a monk's hood, which is a flower that looks like a foxglove, if you know what that looks like. It's kind of a bell-shaped blue flower, and they're very pretty. And I was having some troubles getting out of my body trying to travel, and it told me it could help me to get out of my body and travel. And when I looked it up, I learned it was like deadly poisonous, so I would be out of my body, but not in the fashion that I wanted. So obviously, need to check these things out. They always don't know all the details, of
yeah,
whether it's smart or not.
Carla says, that's awesome, Ian. Robert says, I once talked to a smoky quartz, but it took all I got to understand 3 to 4 words. Laugh out loud. Gabrielle says, I think some of this was from the Kundalini helping me learn, and I was supposed to have this experience, but I didn't want to be anywhere near dead folks. Well, this is a good thing. We don't want you anywhere near dead either. And choosing to stay here is always a good thing to do. Carla says, thank you for that. I know I heard her. She's curled up behind me now. Aya says, hi, random question. Feel free to answer if you like. Do you have children, and do you love or regret your decision? I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, and I do not regret my decision at all. In fact, I made a decision to protect them even when I was given a prophecy that I would lose them and never see them again, and I decided that wasn't okay with me. So I have very strong feelings about my children. Teresa says, I don't know if I am being overly sensitive, but I am afraid of offending living lettuce if I don't choose it or if I cut off their roots to eat it. Am I weird? I
Well,
mean, they have feelings too, so no, I don't think you're weird, but I mean, we graze off of living plants all the time, and you have to decide for yourself if it's already been pulled and you don't have to worry about that. That's one thing. And
you
if you
know,
do worry about it,
here's what it is. Here's what it is, and how a lot of native tribes folks do things. So it's to, in a lot of cases, they actually will apologize to the plant and, say, tell it that it's necessary for it to be picked to be sustain our human life and that, and have respect for it. And mostly it's things like that. Don't disrespect it. It's like they have an egregore like everything else. So if you don't respect the egregore, I mean, grass doesn't get mad at you for walking on it. But if you're mean to it, if you're mean to nature, and it knows you don't respect it, then the egregore can, maybe you'll suddenly get attacked by bees because they don't like you or something. Who knows? But it's the whole egregore thing. So it's the general attitude of it. If you don't do it with disrespect, then it's certainly absolutely okay to eat plants and eat animals for food and such like that. But you need to have the proper respect, and it's unfortunate, it's a whole other subject, the way animals are dealt with and treated, are food animals and things. But, that would be ideal if they were all respected and killed with respect and love instead of the way they are. But, so that's basically the thing about plants that I've decided. You need to do what you can do. You
but
you have
everything
to be
has to
you
eat.
have to be practical, but make sure you do it with respect. That's all, and that's my opinion on that whole subject. Do it with respect, and you won't go wrong.
Robert says, Gabrielle, I do all I need to do to try to stimulate my Kundalini, but eating the right food. Maybe by eating the right food.
Yeah,
Gabrielle
well,
says, one spirit said that I'm really lucky to be in a body and live my life because living are very fortunate to have so much opportunity.
well, that's what Barton says, that it's a real opportunity down here to make progress. Um, it's easier here apparently because of the very difficulty of it, and you have a sense of time and such. In some of the higher spheres, you don't necessarily have a sense of time and things like that. So I don't know. I'm just on that. I don't remember any past lives, so I'm just going what Barton says on that for now myself.
So Robert says, so you, Shifra, did you have some experience of communication between you and some crystals? Well, yeah, me and crystals and rocks and things like that more than once. And I really feel like today I brought in my piece of selenite, and I'm wearing some of my crystals right now because they wanted to be on me and to help me out. So I really feel their energy and so forth, and their willingness to participate in the process of helping my energy shield or my energy field and whatnot. But on occasion, I've gotten actual direct information, like when I was in Big Sur, and the group of people that were in Big Sur that were like turning this one ley line and diverting it into a large boulder and using that to store energy, and we're sucking the energy life force out of the planet at the time, the power whatever it was they were up to. That boulder was very happy that I noticed what was going on, and I released it and freed it. In general, though, the big, huge boulders are not that communicative because they are slow. Their thoughts are very far apart. Smaller crystals seem to have kind of quicker communication abilities when it comes to that. But yeah, if you can tune into the right frame of mind, be in the right state of being, then you can learn stuff from them. And I also have seen some of the beings that are associated with the various crystals, like my blue kyanite showed itself to me, and so then I knew which way was up on that particular crystal. So it can be interesting anyway. Carla says, this made me chuckle, not the type of getting outside the body requested.
Yep.
Robert says, I'm strangely getting sensitive, Siofra, these past few weeks. Like, I'm getting angry but balanced still. But like, been there, done that, but no is no for certain things. And good. Boundaries. Important to know what they are. And Robert says, true, Ian, respecting has a vibe that is crucial. H.T. Mademoiselle says, I'm just listening. Kisses. Robert says, Teresa, no, you're not weird. It's awakening. It's an awakening. Gabrielle says, I just realized how afraid I am from the PTSD, and I've been doing a lot of exercise and stretching to get the trauma out of my fascia. So I think I'm just processing a lot. Your outfit is beautiful, Siofra. Well, thank you. It's very warm. So I put on something not very warm. Robert says, Siofra, recently I just found that I am overly intolerant to some weird energies from certain people. Kind of a weird empath feeling that something is off and makes me angry very fast. Why? Because you're feeling something that's going on in them that's not compatible with where you're at and how you're feeling. And most communication is nonverbal. And when, for the average person, even, you can get uncomfortable around somebody. I've noticed that if I'm having a conversation with someone and I start to feel really spacey, it's because the words that they're saying out of their mouth aren't matching the energy and the body language that they're presenting to me. But as an empath, you even get that more. And sometimes you can see into the heart of someone and who they truly are. I had a client that I tried to do energy work on once. And after doing the energy work on her, what I saw, it resulted in me dropping her as a client. I saw a darkness in her heart that I've not witnessed in person before, not that I can recall anyway. And then I couldn't do energy work on her anymore after that, and she could tell, and she wanted me to. So she was becoming dissatisfied with my work and trying to, tell me how to do it and what to do and stuff like that. And I finally just said, I can't work on you anymore. And, that's important. When we were at the denturist this week, Ian got his teeth realigned, or not realigned.
No, that was relined.
Relined,
Yes.
not realigned, but
Right.
relined.
Yeah.
The dentist was talking about himself as being an empath, and there's certain people he can't work on because he can tell they're afraid of him, or they're projecting certain things onto him and stuff like that, and it makes him unable to do his job well because he's affected by what they're thinking at him. And so then it changes how he responds and what he does and how well he can do his job, and he just tells them he can't work on them. So I think it's a very valid thing that empaths have, that if you get a certain vibe from people, and if you're getting angry, it probably means that they've got something like that in there, that if they verbalized it, you would get mad. So trust your instincts and trust your intuition when it comes to that kind of stuff, and stay away from those people. I've had occasional times where I've looked at someone and been able to see what they've been up to, which is not something I really like, and fortunately doesn't happen all that often, because of my controls. But yeah, and I take those things seriously. It's like, if I'm wrong, okay, fine, but they'll never know it, and I don't care. I'm going to follow my instincts and be safe, and that's the way it works. So Robert says, I wear now an Apache tear, and it calms the brain and gives a sense of inner peace and security feeling. Good, whatever works. Apache tear is probably a good one for that. Gabrielle says, I hope the Kundalini cures me of my fear of death. I do have less fear overall, but I also cry a lot more. I'm usually disassociated, but it feels like I'm still get purged. Well, I think that's part of the process. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like when we've been gone through serious trauma, one of the things that happens is our intellect and our heart center get disconnected from one another. And intellectually, we can process stuff and understand things and so forth. But if we can't feel it and allow the feelings to be processed and to understand and comprehend what's happened in a visceral sense, no matter how much we may intellectually understand and comprehend what's happening and how we should behave or what should happen next, it makes it impossible. You've got to get the heart going in with it. And and when we have a lot of trauma, we tend to repress our feelings because it's not safe to have them. We're at whatever situation we're in. If we're in a dangerous situation, not feeling is a safety mechanism to keep us from doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, going the wrong place, whatever it might be, getting too much, getting the wrong attention, whatever it happens to be. And so, once we get out of that and start getting into a place where we're safe to process and confront those things, they come back up and they come out as strong as they were when they went in, because they haven't been dealt with yet. And that's probably why you're crying. I remember when I started going into therapy when I was in Santa Cruz, and I was in the incest survivors group, and a lot of that stuff started coming out. I would be spontaneously bursting into tears throughout the day. You just never knew when it was going to happen, that these feelings were just going to come out and just start leaking out of my face. So I remember being annoyed by it from time to time, that here I was trying to eat my breakfast and I was crying into my bowl of milk and cereal. It's like there's that saying, don't cry over spilt milk, but here I am crying into the bowl anyway. It's like, yeah. But you allow yourself the space and just make sure you take care of yourself in the in-between times, after you've processed, and be kind to yourself, and do something to bring you back into the present, to realize that you're currently safe and everything is fine. Nothing is currently trying to harm you. And that is an important step in your process, development, healing, and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's what I think anyway. So Jen says, hello everyone, wishing you all oceans of love and light. Thank you, Jen. Robert says, hi, Jen. Beth says, hi everyone, stopped in to say hello. Today's my son's birthday. We're having a barbecue. I'll be listening. Well, thank you, Beth. It's always nice to have people that come in just to listen. So Gabrielle says, Kundalini is Hindu for you're screwed. It's a roller coaster. Robert says there are stories circulating on YouTube that narcissism is a Jezebel spirit possession issue. Any thoughts? I think that sounds ridiculous. It's just another way of blaming some external force on the problems that they're having as narcissists. Is like, I mean, we have that tendency to like try to blame something outside of ourselves. The devil made me do it, whatever. I'm possessed, I've been influenced, not taking personal responsibility for their own actions and who they are. I think their brain's not functioning right, and I think they really enjoy what they're doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't start the theory on their own, because making people feel sorry for them is actually part of their process. Narcissists love to be victims, so I wouldn't give it any credit at all. That's my thought. Robert says, oh, death I do not fear. I fear of getting bored or too much suffering before going. Yeah. Robert says, Siofra, yes, visceral sense. Those two words resonate well in my current situation. Gabrielle says, yes, that makes sense. Thanks, Siofra. You're welcome. Robert says, Siofra, I had an incredible experience off matrix with Levarkite and selenite, and all I can say is I'm happy to have those bracelets. Good. Larvakite, huh? Is that made out of larva stone? Like lava? I've not heard of larvakite. Echo says, any tips on spiders? I know it's the time of year, but I've had 4 on me over the last week. I think they're trying to get my attention. I have no tips on spiders. They make me jump. If they get near me, I leap around and squish them. But I did rescue a spider last week, and it was stuck in my sink, in my kitchen sink, and it couldn't get out because of all the water. I mean, the sink was too slippery. And so I thought about it, and I actually got, what was it that I got? I got some kind of a piece of cardboard or something or other. Can't even remember what it was now, and I got it to climb up on it and then walked it outside and let it go. Because, we need spiders. They're important to the ecosystem. But if they climb on me, they're dead. That's kind of the way that works. Robert says, Larvakite Norway stone. It's awesome to help protection and develop insights of all kinds. Cool. Ikil says, same. I just like them intensely. The one I washed out of my hair about made me jump out of my skin. Well, I bet I had an experience with jumping spiders when I was a kid, which made me very terrified of spiders. I had a jumping spider in my hair. We were sitting, we had those little bitty tables, like kid tables or whatever, and me and my brother and sister were sitting at the little kids' table next to the wall, and I looked up and saw a big jumping spider, and then it leaped at me, and I leaped out of my chair and started running across the room and putting my hair down and screaming. Then I had a spider in my hair, and my mother comes along, and I don't see a spider in your hair, and then it jumped out of my head and landed on the floor in front of me. I was not happy. I don't remember, not sure how old I was. I was probably about like 7 or so, I think, something like that. But yes, it can be quite startling. Barbara says jumping spiders are so cute. They're the only ones I tolerate. Carla says I like larva kite too, Robert. Gabriela says I'm normally afraid of bugs, but I rescued a bee out of the pool without thinking. I think it was the Fae influenced, because I hate bugs. Well, maybe so. Robert says yes, Carla, an underrated stone. There's so many wonderful stones out there. I love rocks. I've done like 2 Reiki sessions this week, and I used my selenite pieces on both of them, actually, which helped quite a bit in both cases, I think. Sometimes having the stone with me when I'm doing distance healing can be very helpful, and I really like selenite because it's solidified light force energy, and it just really travels well when you're out in your mental body and stuff like that. It sort of goes with you. Ah. Gabrielle says, but something about seeing tiny creatures struggling in the water made me rescue it. Yep, same with me and the spider. Teresa says, did you know that jumping spiders enjoy playing? It is true. I've seen videos, and one wanted to play with me too. Well, I'm so happy for them. Yeah, they can play with each other, but not with me. Carla says, sorry for making you say it, Chiefra. It's a tongue twister. Hey, that's okay. My mouth works most of the time. But you know, they live here too. As long as they're not trying to bite me, I have a policy. Anything that tries to suck my blood, all bets are off. And out come the big guns, as it were. Like, nope, not okay. Gabrielle says, okay, jumping spiders are sort of cute, I'll admit. Yeah, but not when you're 7 and they're in your hair. They were not funny. Robert says, is there a good replacement of sage? Sage is getting expensive in Quebec. Well, I grow my own sage, so you might want to look into getting some seeds and grow your own. Then you don't have to worry about the expense. I just discovered that I think all of the sage plants that I grew from seed were female. So I'm letting them bloom and seed and hopefully get a male. Apparently, this particular type of sage has got a male and female plant. I'm hoping to get some male plants so that I can make some smudge sticks out of them. But you can even use, like culinary sage, and it's pretty easy to grow that. I used that for years. I don't know that you have to have like silver sage or white sage or whatever. It's not necessary, not an absolute necessity. That's just in one particular tradition what they tend to use. But sage still smells pretty much the same when you burn it. And if you have the right associations with it and the intent when you use it to purify, then it's going to work. So you could even buy, like sage from a health food store. Um, that's for culinary purposes and burn that, I think. But there's plenty of other things you can use besides sage. What would they be? Frankincense and myrrh.
Frankincense and myrrh, or
Copal.
of course they used angelica. Natives did around this region.
Right, angelica. There's probably a bunch of different native plants that can be used for that. Cedar is another one that's good for cleansing, and you can burn cedar too and use it for that, or you can sprinkle it. Um, Carla says, I just got a scarab pendant that has a Libyan desert glass and moldavite in it from a mystic up in New York. It's a gorgeous piece. Cool. Gabrielle says, oh no, not in the hair. Then says, hello, Robert. Happy birthday to your son, Beth. Robert says, Carla, wow, must be an awesome piece. Mary says, hi, Siofra. It's been a long time, but I just got an intuition to tune in. Any new fairy experiences, stories, or did you already tell everyone and I missed it? Well, I mean, I haven't had any new ones in particular. I mean, I have had some visitors, but nothing of note as far as it goes. Robert says Palo Santo. Yes. Ickle says I like using rosemary too. Yeah, that's another good one. And Mary says maybe burning lavender instead of sage. And lavender is something else that can be done, but I think more lavender is more for calming and relaxation than it is for cleansing in particular. So it has slightly different properties, but it'd be a good one for bringing positive energy into a space, I would think. But yeah. So haven't seen you in a while, Mary. Welcome back. Yeah, we've been so busy with our projects. But doing the Reiki has been my main thing this week as far as it goes. It's like doing distance healing and stuff like that. And the one person I worked on said that they saw me when I was working on him, so that was kind of cool. Robert says, welcome back. Beth says, thank you. I'm really enjoying this live. Robert says, hi, Beth. Yep. Mary says, thank you. You're welcome. Welcome back. Thank you. You're welcome. Pickle says, did you get all the shawls finished? I'm working on the last one. I have 2 panels done. I'm working on the 3rd panel, and that will be the last one I'm obligated to do because I decided to do it. It was my own, internal obligation. But she's the last member of the family. She's living with my grandson, so I figured I couldn't leave her out. And yeah, so Beth says, hi, Robert. Gabrielle says, I'm thinking I had a troll in my room. It was higher than the ceiling. I just saw its shadow. Laugh out loud. I was standing in the astral, and I'm like, what the heck? That sounds like a troll. They're pretty tall. Or an ogre. But, both of them are kind of tall. But, where you live, I met that forest troll that one time, so, and they're tall. There's no doubt about it. So it could be something like that. Interesting. All the things that we can see. Lots of stuff out there. Well, the guy I met, I kind of liked him. I thought he was pretty awesome, protecting the forest. So you could have attracted attention because of all the other fae that are floating around you. Gabriel says, I had spinning lights flying around and it looked like slits of light all along the walls of my room. Thus looks like portals. Cool. Carla says, does anyone like scary movies? Not me. Gabriel says, it was all so shocking. Robert says, I made a wand to help me in my journey, a pneumite, a black tourmaline, and a black kyanite. The energy of this is way up. Yeah, I bet. What, did you use wood too, or is it just crystals? What kind of wood, if you used wood? I'm curious. Of course, you know me and all my different woods for different wands and purposes. Wood? What kind of wood? I see that it's wood, but like, from what tree, what source, where did you find the wood? All connected with wires. Gabriel says, yeah, I like the troll. He had horns. Maybe draw a picture of him. Oh, that'd be awesome. Carla says, a little off topic, but I only asked because we're going to a double feature at the drive tonight. Yeah, I'm not that fond of scary, what they call scary movies. I like supernatural movies, certain kinds, but I don't like horror flicks, so it depends on what it means, what you mean by scary. So I think that's a real personal thing. I'm very sensitive to all the different platforms that are associated with those, and I don't want to generate them in myself. Maybe something like that. Carla says, as I'm typing, I'm listening, and I use all those too, Robert. Robert says, what kind? Unknown. I bought this at the local home hardware. The wood? You bought the wood at the hardware store? Okay.
Hey, that works though.
Yeah, whatever works.
It's all in how it's charged.
It's all in how it's charged, but you know me, I like to know what the wood is and where the tree was that I got it from if I can. Carla says, yes, supernatural. Yeah, I like some supernatural stuff. Depends on if it's a supernatural horror thing with, just good versus evil, demons and Satan and
Monster
angels
movies,
and basic monster movies instead of something that's actually intellectually as well as emotionally engaging and mysterious and so forth and whatnot. But there's so many standard tropes out there.
Yeah, we're jaded enough after all these years of watching TV. We need something that has a little bit of substance and intellect to it. It's not just kill, kill, kill monsters,
And unique.
Yep. Has to have a bit of a story. Uniqueness definitely helps.
Yeah. Robert says, good Carla, Newmite is so strong that it was able to help me getting rid of my fatigue, accumulated fatigue I had because I didn't sleep, and Newmite got rid of this. Newmite is a badass energy. Awesome.
Cool.
I like supernatural TV show and also anything occult oriented. Yeah, us too. I mean, the kinds of shows that we tend to watch often have that. Either that or some science fiction kind of stuff. So, fantasy, science fiction, and supernatural sorts of shows are some of our favorite genres. Yeah. The show Supernatural, we rewatched a while back the entire 15 seasons, is it?
Something like that. It's a lot
Something
of seasons,
like that.
whatever it is. Yeah.
At our current moment, we're rewatching all the Stargates that are out there. Just not that we haven't seen them before, but at least we know what we're getting. But yes, and then we find some new stuff here and there. Gabrielle says, I think I got scared about my experience because I was afraid of dying and not being me because so many non-dual teachers say the personal self doesn't exist and that there's no reincarnation. Well, I remember a whole bunch of past lives, so if there's no reincarnation, it's news to me.
Well,
and my memory of the other lives I've been in that I recall pieces of, and sometimes more than pieces. Gabrielle says, then I want to reincarnate, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to again. Oh, you'll be able to if you want to, I think. I don't think that's an issue personally, but you want to come back.
well, the thing is, and they're apparently not making it clear that when they say the personal self doesn't exist, you have to realize that this isn't something you go through and your personal self goes away. What it means is, in one sense, everything stays the same, and yet everything is different, and that's the way they describe it in Zen. So it's not so much that anything happens, but you become clear and realize that that is already the case, that your personal self does not exist. I think what happens in most of these cases is that they're trying to describe something that's hard to get into words, and so your brain is easily misinterprets it. You're not, when you go through this, you're not losing anything. You're realizing the truth that's there all along. You don't lose any of your abilities or anything when they say your personal self doesn't exist. You just realize that you had a misconception. That's all that really happens, is you perceive that you have had a misconception. And so while it frees you from the fear of death and that, it also doesn't change who you are, but it may change the way you choose to If it's valid, it should change the way you choose to relate to the world after it happens. But you're not really losing anything. That's you're not losing anything except your illusions and misconceptions. So it sounds more dramatic when they say it doesn't exist and that. And unfortunately, all these things are the problem with trying to talk about the subject because um, when you reach a realm of this type of thing, things sound contradictory. And we normally consider contradictory as like adversarial. But yeah, I guess that's enough about that right at the moment. But
So Robert says, Shifa, are there people that follow many different occult practices? Like they can be Wiccan, and also with other religious orientation, and it doesn't mess with their energy or focus? Some of them, they say that they can. I wouldn't be able to. I mean, like Christian witches is something that I don't get or
well,
comprehend or
yeah,
understand. But there are a lot of similarities between different kinds of spiritual practice and occult practices. There's the commonalities that are between them, that it doesn't matter what they're called. It's the practice itself that is the value from it. And if that's what they're doing, then I don't see a conflict with that. So depends on their personality.
and it depends on the religion. I mean, the Christian thing is, the tenets of that religion are one God and everything, which rather than being interpreted in a universal sense is interpreted in a personal sense. An anthropomorphic God is what they picture. So it kind of depends on what the religions are. Some of them oppose each other in their tenets and things, but some of them are perfectly compatible. I mean, you can worship Ganesha and you can worship Lakshmi at the same time. It's not a problem. So it's kind of a individual thing too, and depends a lot on the religions and things, really.
And I think a lot of it is the internal dialogue that people have with themselves.
Yeah.
And if they have cleared out a lot of that stuff in their own minds and so forth, and are looking at the universal truth behind whatever it is that they're involved in, then that's where they connect it. That's why I call myself a universalist eclectic, because I draw from a lot of different pantheons and practices and so forth, partly because of remembering past lives. And I remember doing those practices, and so they're familiar to me on some level it's hard to describe. Um, but for me, the main thing is in choosing how to act and how to behave. If I would be following, I don't actually follow any religion. I'm not Wiccan. I'm a pagan. And my main thing is not having an artificially imposed set of rules of behavior and standards that are pushed upon me. I want to have my own internal standards that I have chosen, my own personal ethics. And I had sort of an interesting, Ian and I both had an interesting thing when we were at the grocery store the other day, where we were standing behind an elderly gentleman who was having trouble using his card, and I could see he was putting it in the wrong way. The stripe wasn't going to be read by the reader. So I told him to turn his card around and swipe it that way, and then it worked. And he had some other issues. It took him a while. We weren't impatient. It was, we were just having what I would consider common courtesy and, being nice, sensible people. And so, when it was our turn to check out, the cashier was like really felt he needed to tell us how kind we had been and compassionate and how much he noticed what we had done and how much he appreciated it, that we had been so patient with this old man and helped him out. And I was kind of taken aback and astonished by this because in my view, it shouldn't be noteworthy. This should be common practice. Everybody should be treating each other like that. Instead of just thinking of themselves, they should be putting themselves
Well, that's
out
exactly
there.
it.
And
Everybody's in their own heads. And it's like,
exactly.
me. They're only worried about you're slowing me down. You're slowing because everybody's in so much of a rush nowadays.
But see, I didn't do that because I was told by some religious authority that I needed to be nice to strangers or anything. It just seemed the right thing to do, to be a human being. And so I think it really depends upon the internal making mental makeup of the person involved. And some people might compartmentalize their religion versus their occult practices or something like that and come up with a workaround rationalization that works for them or something, however however that is. I don't know, but yeah, for me, it's all about becoming yourself, true to yourself, and becoming your true self. So, however that works, whatever process that works for them, if it works for them, I'm in favor of it. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people all the time that I don't judge them by their beliefs, I judge them by their actions. Because people can say they believe anything, and I've watched people say they believe all kinds of stuff and then act like major jerks, which would go against the professed beliefs that they say they have. So they're external imposed beliefs. They're not genuine, heartfelt things
Yeah,
that are there no matter the circumstances. I don't have to have a special day of the week or a special time of day or anything like that to be a nice person, because it's who we should be. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but it certainly gave me some stuff to think about. But some of them, yes, it may mess with their energy. So there. Gabrielle says, and oops, come back here. I got way down. Okay. Gabrielle says, then I flip flop and I'm afraid I have to reincarnate. I have mixed feelings. Robert says, Wiccans and pagans, etc. Is it possible to follow all this and being okay with it? I think I answered that.
well, I am. Yep.
Yep, I'm fine with it. Um, Carla says, yes, the one weapons is occult supernatural and the other is just fun. I know what you did last summer. Never ending series. Okay. Pickle says, my lilac tree gave me a beautiful curly bit that I just know is a wand. Have you used lilac tree wood ever? No, but I think it would make a wonderful wand, so that's awesome. Robert says, can dolls be cursed?
It could be.
Well, someone could potentially curse a doll, but you know,
It doesn't happen naturally
yeah, I don't think that they're automatically.
unless, you know.
I think they have to be made
Well,
that way, or
I'm going to add a little addendum to this, though, that um, people getting freaked out can create their own larvas or things, their own negative energy that will adhere to an object. So, um, if, like, say some little girl's mother kept telling her her doll was satanic and throwing it away and stuff, and the little girl believed it, and there was a lot of fear and stuff like that associated with it, then that doll could carry that energy and it could play out in somebody else. Some other child gets that doll and they could pick up on that energy. And this is the same reason some people collect artifacts from like masters, things masters have touched to try to get a little bit of their energy with it. So it can happen like that if the doll was with some child or something that's gone through traumatic incidents. It could be imprinted on the doll, and then the doll would have to be cleared out and banished to get rid of it. And it could affect other people, usually by psychic impression more than anything physical. Usually, like, person was depressed, and they say a doll was with a really depressed kid for a long time, and they held on to it or something, and then somebody else get it. It might have a tendency to make them depressed for a while. But
automatic
yeah,
psychometry
all
kind of,
those energies will clear out over time naturally.
unless they're fed and
Well,
printed
unless
again.
yes, unless the person increases the fear and stuff increases by the next person, then it
Yeah,
gets charged up more. So
yeah. So Robert says, Carla, those are good. Gabrielle says, Ian, that makes sense. So it's just more reality or whatever is actually true. Robert says, true, Ian, perceptions are illusions and the reverse also true, etc. Indeed, Gabrielle. Gabrielle says, yeah, Eckhart says that all that is real will survive, so that makes sense.
yeah, there's really no reason to fear that. In fact, everybody should be like going for that particular development. It's just that the words used to describe it, you know, unless you have a comprehension of where they're coming from, they sound contrary.
So Robert says, Siofra, do you use bloodstone, and if yes, for what purpose? I myself use them for grounding, but for me it's a confusing stone because it's enigmatic and won't reveal itself yet to me. Bloodstone is a goddess stone. It's been more recently associated with Jesus because of the red color that's in it, but it originally was considered a female stone, so maybe that's part of the confusion. And it's supposed to represent the blood of the goddess, the menses of women, and creation, and that kind of thing. And I have bloodstone on my staff, and I use bloodstone periodically. I don't use it on a regular basis at this point, but I've used it in the past. Um, and I don't know what else to say about it at the moment. Gabriel says, yeah, that makes sense, Shifra. I think my ego is fighting for its life. Yeah, quite possibly. Carla says, same, Shifra. I see the common thread and use it all in practice. Mary says, I always get confused about the difference between Wiccan and pagan. I just identify as a witch.
Well, witch is fine. Wiccan is
Yeah.
actually the religion. Pagan is generally the practices.
Yeah, and a witch is basically a pagan.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean,
So,
a pagan is
yeah,
anybody who works with nature and does nature magic and that kind of thing,
yeah.
which is a huge umbrella.
The only difference there about your statement is that Wiccan specifies a particular religion with a religious aspect, with a god, a particular god and goddess you worship, and that.
Yeah, and it's a
Whereas
definite religion. It's
whereas
not.
being a witch is, witchcraft, paganism,
I mean,
all under
Wiccans
the
are
same.
usually witches and practice witchcraft. Um,
Or it can be shamanism also, which is very similar, except for
which is also paganism.
the definitions and the words are a little different,
Right.
but yeah.
So Gabrielle says, yep, being a decent human being. Jen says, not a magical question, but speaking of home repairs, I've been wanting to ask Ian what type of welding he learned to fix the car door. Was it MIG or TIG? I'm in
Well,
the same boat, having to learn new
I'll
skill.
tell you, it was neither. MIG welder would be much better, and we used to have one, but I had to sell it. We had to sell it because we needed money, had to get. But no, it was a standard old cheap arc welder, and um, they work real well. The difficulty with using it on a car is thin material. I'm having trouble blowing holes through thin material. That's a problem with an arc welder. MIG welder would be, you know, I haven't experienced a TIG welding, so I don't know what that's actually like in practice. A MIG welder would be much preferred for working on thin material like that. Arc welder is good for crude and rough welding on thick and heavy material. So, but that's what we had, so that's what we used. But I made it happen. I couldn't weld directly to the sheet metal. I had to use a chunk of thicker steel as a patch and kind of weld that on to where they had reinforced the sheet metal at some points. So we had a reinforced patch to use.
Yep.
Kind of had to work around the welder.
Carlos, so in other words, try a MIG welder if you
Well,
can
yeah,
get one.
depending on what you're going to fix. Yeah, MIG welders are nicer for doing thin material.
Okay, so Carla says, being kind is the new punk rock. Gabrielle says, yep, Carla. And Carla says, oh my God, a friend and I were talking about this because of the cursed Raggedy Ann doll that came to Pennsylvania from the Annabelle movie. The day the doll got here, our 911 system went down statewide, and then her handler died suddenly. Yeah. Robert says, a female stone? Oh my God, a lady came in my dreams to explain to me how to use it. Thanks, Shira, for that insight. Well, good. I think it was Hecate. She gave me the way to use it to apply it to the legs, so we ground. Well, awesome. Carla says, but yes, I definitely think if you expect a thing or place to be haunted, that thought is like a beacon. The more thoughts, the brighter the beacon. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and usually it's not just the thoughts. It's usually the fact that the people who um, have those things happen. It usually builds upon their own fears and things internally. In a lot of cases, depending on the person that got something like that, if you got an object that was full of fear and you'd already reached the point Eckhart Tolle talks about that wouldn't bother you in the least, you might notice negative energy and not want to fool with it. You go like yuck, but so it kind of depends on how open and receptive the person is too, and all those kinds of variables.
So Gabrielle says, I think my anxiety is probably from my Christian upbringing. So God and the afterlife feels sterile and impersonal, and maybe some of that is from my abusive parents. It's all jumbled up. quite possibly. I
Yeah.
remember thinking through the whole idea of heaven and whatnot when I was a kid, and thinking the description of heaven, and it sounded like about the most boring place that I could imagine, and not really my idea of a nice place to go. So kind of a version of hell for me. So yeah, it's an interesting that they have these concepts, and yeah.
Yeah, we both know that experience. My grandfather was a hardcore um, Christian preacher.
Yeah, Robert says, Gabrielle, I like the word sterile in that context because I have the same story of this, that they protect those insane beliefs of abuse. Yep. Ron says, hello to all and many bright blessings. Welcome, Ron. Robert says, hi, Ron, welcome. Gabrielle says, so when I hear non dual teachers speaking of how the self doesn't exist and saying after death, I'll just be gone, feels a lot like the impersonal bottle of hand sanitizer on the throne.
Well,
Maybe trauma.
I think those non-dual teachers you're listening to have a little bit of misunderstanding. Um, I would make sure they're actually in that state before listening to them if they don't have that consciousness, because
Do they know what they're talking
well,
about?
yeah, I have my reasons to believe that reincarnation continues and goes on, and um, even when you reach the state that it doesn't, you're so highly developed, the things like worrying about things like this would not even be relevant. Yeah, I don't really know how to counter that except to make sure before they say that they actually are in a non-dual state. The only ones I know of off the top of my head that I'm pretty sure were Ram Dass, and he has had a stroke last I'd heard. I don't know if he's even still alive. And Eckhart Tolle, and there are a bunch of other people I believe who have attained it, but um, Tolle is the only one who speaks with it openly in a Western sense without using obscure terms and things. So yeah, till I experience it, I can't tell you I don't have past lives, but I believe that to be true, that we do reincarnate unless you've reached the point where you don't need to.
And then you can choose not to.
Yeah, and in that case, you're developed a lot. You're very highly developed, and it would be a whole different issue of deciding what to do at that point.
So Robert says, lots of green stone bracelets you've got there, Siofra. Yes, I've got green aventurine, um, cryopraise, and emerald. And then on this hand, I've got lapis, chalcedony, and amethyst. So here's the blues and the purples. So I've got green on one side and blue and purple on the other. So, Jen says, thank you. Is arc welding the same as flux core?
Um, Not exactly. The welding rods have the flux on the outside, so not in the core, and the actual metal is in the core. And it's the least expensive kind of welder you can get into. You can get into ours is about $80, and it has as much power and everything as I want. We ended up with it because it was inexpensive and we needed one after I had to sell the MIG welder. But so it's, yeah, the flux is on the outside of the rods, and basically you just strike an arc, and the arc makes the weld. But it's the more crude way to do it, but also the least expensive. So depending on what you're looking at doing and whether you have a lot of money to spend, MIG welders are usually several $100s to get a halfway decent one. And for arc welders, this $80 one will do about everything I need it to, especially since I'm not doing it every day, not a professional unit at all.
So Gabrielle says, and then the coldness I've experienced from other people and the isolation of trying to figure things out on my own since childhood. Yeah, it's difficult. Robert says, yes, Gabrielle, it is one hell of a ride. Gabrielle says, it may be just my filters, Ian, and maybe the concepts are just psychologically overwhelming, but I didn't choose the Kundalini, so I feel like something mismatched with the level of things I'm experiencing versus my emotional maturity. I think we all get there at some point. sometimes we experience things that are beyond our ability to comprehend in the moment, but then later things make sense.
Yeah. Kundalini is so varied. All I can say is on the Kundalini front, in general, this is the most general statement. In general, it should be okay to relax and give into the Kundalini to an extent. Um, I was having some kriyas once and it ended up causing me a hernia that caused me years worth of problems before we could get it fixed. So if the Kundalini wants to move your body around, make sure you stay in enough control not to injure yourself because it can really fling you around and stuff. But other than that, mostly I think surrendering to it is the right option in most cases, and don't fight it. Just let it flow through and then it ends and is over. But that's a generality, and each specific case has to be considered individually.
Carla says, thank the goddesses for that because I've decided this is my last trip here. I'll take the loss of sense of time. Robert says, agreed, Carla. Lots of things in life we choose, but also many we do not. Gabrielle says, yep. Rob?
I'll tell you, speaking for myself, I had enough of this incarnation stuff this time. Who knows whether, I mean, I don't feel like I'm advanced enough not to be reincarnated again, but I certainly don't want to. I've had it. I mean, this life ended up all right in the end now. I mean, but geez. If it started out this way, it would have been another matter, but
Yeah.
through my childhood and stuff, don't want that again.
Carla says, truth right there, Robert. Gabrielle says, yeah, hopefully I'll grow into it. Jen says, okay, I think I know what you're talking about. They come in sticks, no?
Yes.
Last question about this, I promise. Which arc welder did you get? I just need for small repairs. Thanks so much.
Well, I don't even remember. Here, I'll look at the name on it.
He's going to go check and see.
FDS.
An FD.
FDS.
An FDS. Whatever that is.
That's apparently the brand name, and it's the model BX1-250.
BX1
250C.
250C.
Yeah, it's it's adequate. It's not special.
Did we pick it up at
We ordered it.
Oh, okay.
We actually had that one shipped from Amazon.
Okay. I thought maybe we got that from Harbor Freight.
Yeah, it was all in all, it was so much cheaper. Harbor Freight wasn't here yet at the time.
Okay. It's been a while.
We probably would have bought it at Harbor Freight if we'd had one here at the time.
So Gabrielle says, yeah, I can relax into the kriyas. It's not too aggressive. Yeah, maybe I just need not too much and just focus on feeling safe and experiencing life. And yeah, agree. I'm sick of suffering. If I reincarnate again, I want kickback mode. Robert says, FDS, Federal Bureau of Sanity.
Well, I wish there was such a thing.
If only.
I think our government would be incarcerated.
If it were. Beth says, me too, Ian. I've had enough of it as well. Robert says, Federal Defense Spiders.
Yeah, I like that one. That's what it'll be.
We'll get all the spiders out there and they'll defend us.
It's probably some, I think it's an Asian welder. It's probably some unpronounceable name. But it runs on 110 or 220, so I got plenty of power if I want it.
So Gabrielle says, not thinking too much. Ron says, Siofra, may I ask if you have done a talk on spiritual houseplants? No, I don't think I have. I mean, if you have houseplants, it probably helps with the Fae. I don't have any houseplants currently. I've had them in the past. And I don't know which ones would be spiritual versus others as far as it goes. Gabrielle says, laugh out loud, Robert. Jen says, thank you so much. I love my Harbor Freight. Okay, no more non-magical questions. Carla says, let's do that. Citizen's arrest. Nicholas says, I'll have a word with these spiders. Find. Gabrielle says, Federal Bureau of Sanity.
Yep, that's what we need.
Robert says, Siofra, do you sometimes have side effects coming from crystals, like too many, or also in some cases not enough? Well, I have difficulty with some crystals. I'm trying to see if I can adapt to tanzanite because I was able to wear a tanzanite for most of the day as long as I wore it with other crystals and it wasn't touching my skin. So, yeah, sometimes. And sometimes my crystals just want to hang out and do stuff. Oh, we had an incident with the fairies this week, actually, I think. We have a very large remote control for our sound system. I mean, it is like, what, 7, 8 inches long.
Something like that. It's pretty good size.
And it's a couple, like 2 inches wide or so. It's a good sized remote. It disappeared. And where we usually keep it on the table, I looked, Ian looked, I looked behind my chair, we looked on the floor, we looked under the chairs, we looked on his side, we looked on my side. We searched for 2 days, and then the next evening, I look over and there it is on top of the table, and I said, "Oh, you found the remote." And Ian says, "I'm not going to talk about it," or "I can't talk about it," or something like that. And it turns out you tell them what happened.
Well, I was just sitting there in my chair and heard it fall on the floor. It just fell on the floor, and so I picked it up off the floor and put it on the table. Right, fell on the floor right beside my chair, which is there's nothing beside my chair except the table, and we'd searched the table top and bottom, and it wasn't there.
Several times.
So yeah,
both of us. So yeah, we're pretty sure that they were having fun with us. So that was kind of entertaining. I think they got bored because I wasn't yelling at them. I think on some level they like it when I notice and I yell at them.
I don't know, we seem to have, it's not frequent, but we seem to have a consistent amount of inexplicable things happen.
So, Teresa says, "I'm looking forward to a few lives on this planet once humanity gets its shit together. I believe it will happen. I hope so." Carla says it will, Teresa. Ickle says, "I got cut off. Find a way to send them your way. Get them out of my hair."
That's about the spiders.
Ah,
right.
I see. Okay.
The word with the spiders, find a way.
Find a way to send them your way. Get them out of my hair. I see. Okay. Well, I might send them somewhere else. I don't know. Gabrielle says, "Laugh out loud. Love fairy shenanigans." Mary says, "I do feel like life is getting better as I get closer to 50. Interesting, so many have youth worship. Being younger was much more of a struggle versus growing into myself. That's for sure."
Well, yeah, after I met Siofra, my life really started changing for the better, and then it's changed for the better, and now it's like, we still don't have much money in that, but life is basically, yeah, basically much better, even with the chaos that the granddaughter brings into everything.
Yeah, we're not even talking about her.
Yeah.
So Eccles says the Defense Bureau, not you. Okay, you're going to send them to the Defense Bureau. I gotcha. Robert says, "Agreed, Mary." Ron says, "I do thank you all for being among my teachers." Well, we're glad to be among your teachers. Carla says, "Never found my tea towel they stole 20 years ago, but they don't blow my candles out anymore." We've had some pretty impressive stuff over the years, but yeah.
Now we've had some interesting ones like that, like the fire pixie getting stuck in my magical lamp.
Right, the fire pixie getting stuck in a magic lamp.
Yeah, I don't want to go over that story again, but
yeah,
interesting things happened.
That was pretty interesting.
That was why things kept trying to knock over my lamp, because the fire pixie wanted to escape, I guess.
Trying to get out. Let me out! Let me out! Jen says, "How is Quinn?" "Oh, he is fine. He's in his full
bouncy
form.
And happy and
Yep, and when I give him his food at night, he's doing binkies all over the place and almost knocking over everything in sight to do them. So it's been great to see.
Dancing around your feet, doing figure eights to greet you around your feet.
Yep, he's been good. We're thinking we're going to be building him a dig box and put like cardboard papers and things like that in there so that he can get in there and he can chew and to his heart's content to sort of focus some of his destructive energy into a more constructive path.
Someone's given us lots and lots of hearts.
Yep. So yes. So Robert says, "Siofra, I can myself say that even for me, selenite is sometimes so intense that I must take a break, especially those selenite bracelets, because it's hours and hours of using them, but it does wonders to my vibes." Yeah, it's really good. I don't know if I've mentioned it or not, but it's really good for inflammation to use as like an emergency, anti-inflammation tool. That's what I was doing with my neck down when I was playing with it. Like you can really help with that. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be wearing it all the time, and it's so soft too. But that I can understand. It's like getting adapted to having that kind of brightness around you all the time. You might need to take a break. Sometimes I have it in bed with me, though. Carlos says, laugh my ass off. Robert says, yes, fairies like to play and feel wanted. Gabrielle says, when I was asleep, one grabbed my wrist and started waving to another fairy with my hand. I was paralyzed from sleep but lucid. They are brats. Well, that sounds like they were having fun. Oh, look, I can move this. Whee! Fairy says, fairies playing with you. I am absent minded enough. Yeah. You have to notice them when they happen. I think maybe it happens more often than we realize because we're not necessarily paying all that close attention to our environment. But, you know. Gabrielle says, when. Oh, I did that one already. Never mind. Making sure I'm not missing anybody. Hard to believe it's only 15 minutes left at this point. Jen says, by the way, back to sage alternatives. Sorry, I'm cooking dinner, so I'm behind in the chat. But I know the Sioux medicine men also burned tobacco and sweetgrass as
So
alternatives to
you
white
missed the
sage.
question about from Ia.
Oh, okay. Ia says, what do you think about the relationship of Bigfoot and fairies? Do you think that they can be one and the same? I don't know. I don't think you can take a picture of a fairy, so I think it's highly unlikely. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different things out there that are uncategorized, and you can't come to a definitive answer. I don't have a definitive answer, and I like to have some scientific evidence to support even a spiritual inspiration in some cases. So I don't know. So sweetgrass is really great for bringing in positive energy, and as far as tobacco goes, that be to get rid of negative energy. Usually that's to talk to the great.
Well,
Spirit.
yeah, the Native Americans
Sending
used it
prayers.
as to talk to the Great Spirit. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how they
that'd be
used
for
it.
for sending prayers to, um, yeah. Gabrielle says, reminded me of that movie Weekend from Bernie's. Oh yeah, that was the dead body, and they get Immer Tiny Punk says hi. Carla says they like to move keys, stinkers. Yes, I've had key issues with them. Robert says, Siofra, is there a sort of animal monster in the astral realm that can enter our physical realm if we call them? I had an experience of a scary growls near my window at one point. I have encountered spirit beings that can growl, and I didn't think it's sort of animalistic, but not an animal. But yeah, um, they're not monsters; they're just animals or different kinds of beings and
animalistic spirits.
animalistic, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the guardian kind of spirit that predates human beings that I met north of town here. Was definitely stuck in the house and shouldn't have been, and we helped it to leave. But and it definitely growled, so I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty interesting. And it had enough substance that it actually cast a shadow on the ground that other people could see. Um, the thing is, it's like I said, there's just so many different kinds of, there's as many types of spirit beings and so forth out there as there are different kinds of animals and plants on the planet. So people are bound to experience things that I have never encountered, or I can experience things that no one else has encountered. So it's like, there's room for unusual encounters in there and still be real. So Beth says, I love selenite. I love how it feels on my neck. Yeah. Gabrielle says, I have videos to Fairy. I'll send you. I keep forgetting. Yes, I keep waiting. Barbara says, link please, Gabrielle. I want to see. Well, she can't do that on our channel because it's disabled, I think. Carla says, I have the strangest convos with some of my friends, but we kind of thought Bigfoot and Faye are interdimensionals.
It's I'm not sure that I go for Bigfoot at all, but I have often thought that interdimensionals or something like that it would explain a lot, especially in the cases of UAPs, how they can exhibit characteristics and fly at speeds that defy physics as we know it. But if you were seeing an image and they were in, say, you're able to put something physical up to the astral plane, which some magicians can do, you might end up with that kind of thing. And the thing that's always bothered me with the Bigfoot and stuff, if they exist, in physical reality on this plane, we should have a skull or something. Eventually, after all these years, we should have come across a giant skull or something, some actual physical evidence that they existed, and we don't have any. And that's my the big thing that makes me doubt the Bigfoot thing. But if it was something on another plane, it's perhaps you could be seeing something that doesn't have the physical presence, and I'd have no problem believing that. You could be seeing something on another plane, or pictures of Bigfoot and that. Of course, there's all the claims about their physical actions and smells and sounds and all that, but for me, it comes down to thinking that if they're physically there, we should have some undeniable evidence. A giant hand, a giant head, there must be some bones somewhere or something.
Okay, so Gabrielle says, my friend says the fairies will lift up both her arms and she'll wake up with both arms in the air. Jen says, do you have any advice, warnings about how to astral travel and any precautions one should take? Thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom. Well, I would recommend mental rather than astral travel to start with.
Much safer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, astral travel is
and
like
easier.
The idea of completely leaving your physical body behind, and you should be able to see your body if you're astral traveling, like see it below you kind of thing. But it's a little more dangerous because there's a lot of emotional content
and
involved in the astral.
If you're astral traveling fully, your body will stop breathing, and that's when some of the danger can occur. If anybody comes where you wouldn't want somebody to come and shake you because it might break the cord. The only time you get the cord is when you're astral traveling. Mental traveling, you don't get that, and that cord could be damaged by somebody touching you or shaking you when you were astral traveling. So a full astral travel is a little bit dangerous by comparison.
But mental travel is a lot safer and easier, and you can do it and still be aware of your environment if an emergency took place, for example.
And that's what most people call astral travel. They're actually mental traveling because it's much easier to do. It's the first, if you learn how to travel out of your body, you're working on traveling out of your body, the first way it's going to happen is going to be mental travel because that's the easiest to get to.
And that's what I use when I do my distance healing stuff, when I do Reiki. Like, I don't go in the astral, I go in the mental plane. It's very quick for me at this point. I just have to focus, know where I'm going, arrive there, and then start working with the person that I'm trying to work with. And often they can sense that I'm there. So that seems to be sort of affirming as far as it goes. But yeah, so getting yourself in a place where your body is safe and you know that you're safe and so forth, and having control over your situation, you can practice just like mentally traveling to the next room or to visit a friend and look at them and then come back to your body or what have you. But really, when I tried reading a book on Ekankar and the number of warnings that they have about the dangers of astral traveling in the first couple of paragraphs, I stopped reading, because if I finished reading all of that, I'd never leave my body or my mind or anything else ever again, because they really made it sound pretty scary. And in reality, you should have your energy is like yours and yours alone, and you are in charge of it. And so if you don't like what's going on, you just get back in your body, unless something exceptional has happened that has shifted your physical form and your mental, your brain chemistry and stuff like that, which I had happen once. But in general, it's pretty safe to do that. And in the mental realm, you're more disassociated, it's not as visceral and emotional and so forth. So you can sort of have a slight distance from what you're doing and not be completely immersed. So that would be what I think. So Robert says guardian spirit could be. I think it wanted me to know it was there. I should have continued to listen and be present. It was at 3:00 in the morning. Yeah, well, it might come back.
I don't do all my best thinking at 3 in the morning either.
Yeah. Ron says, I have to go now. So I missed it. Here we go. I have to go now. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Blessed be. Carla says, blessed be, Ron. Gabrielle says, Robert, I have some videos on my channel, but the video I want to send Siofra, I don't want to post. says, I want to find love. What can I do magically? Work on yourself. The best advice anyone can give you if you're looking for love is to work on yourself and become who you are and know who you are, so that when you attract a person to you, you will attract the right person. And you will also be able to tell if they are the wrong person. If you know who you are and what your boundaries are, what is and isn't okay to have around you, then if the wrong person starts to show up, you'll see the red flags and then you'll take them to heart instead of following hormones or anything else. So you don't find love by doing spell work. You find love by working on yourself. And then if you're in the right frame of mind, a good relationship can come along, like Ian and I meeting the way we did. So Gabrielle says, I deactivated my Facebook. Yep, UAPs are interdimensional. They disappear right in front of me. Robert says, I just sell stuff on Facebook. They will soon start to ask for personal ID to enter YouTube and Facebook, etc. on the smartphone, I guess, at first. Beth says, I've seen one where I was raised, but I felt energetically from another plane. Gabrielle says, I don't like astral traveling, but it happens spontaneously. How do I stop traveling? Sometimes I'll get out of my body and I'll be upside down.
That used to happen to me when I was a teenager. When I would pop out, I'd end up floating upside down above my body with the top of my head aimed right about at my midsection. Find myself just kind of floating in the air. I did that. That was just spontaneously.
I've had a few things like that too.
I went through a phase of that. It doesn't happen to me anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Ground yourself. Ian says, bye, Ron, and blessed be Ron.
Yeah.
Gabrielle says, but I leave my body so easily because trauma. So if an entity is bothering me, I'll leave my body and try to fight it. Well, that's not a bad idea. Jen says, thank you, that makes sense. How do you recommend one begin mental traveling? How does one know where to go if they want to experience realms they haven't been to before? Try starting with the earth.
Yeah, you can.
In physical reality, you can do experiments with friends that live in distant places. You can set up a time to try and make a connection with them or something like that. And if you wanted to really get serious about it, you could like have them put an object out and see if you could identify the object or what have you. The thing with traveling to different realms in either the mental or astral plane, you can travel the astral realms in your mental body, and the problem comes in is like people can get really drawn into the fantasy realms that are out there and think that they're reality when they're not. And so grounding and having good boundaries is important before you start on that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But basically, you can do that. You can also, a friend of ours learned his by doing the banishing ritual of the pentagram. Mentally get out of his body and do that just to get some experience of walking around. Barden recommends you start with your own house and you go from where you're at, you go like out into the hall or whatever, and then back in short distances, and then you increase them little by little, and start out with places like your own house where you can check. So, like, look at something in the other room in your house, and then go check and make sure that you're seeing it properly, and practice that till you can do it well. He's got a lot of preliminary practices and stuff that lead up to that, including viewing your own image in a mirror and then trying to transfer your consciousness to the image in your mirror and look at your body from inside the image in the mirror, and practices like that.
Or practicing getting into an object, another kind of an object, like into an apple or a candle or.
Well, he's got that but that's a whole different exercise in general.
Well, right.
He's got that as a separate thing. But yeah, the idea being just to make sure you get to the point where your visual sense picks up reality, and then you start doing things farther away, go to your friends, and then once you do that, start visiting places you want to see, go visit the Eiffel Tower or something like that, whatever you might want to visit, once you know that you can see things a little accurately. So that's his recommended methods, leaving out all the preliminary stuff. That's basically it.
So Gabrielle says, I've been scrapping with entities since childhood. Beth says, great live, blessed be. Sylph says, thank you. You're welcome. Jen says, thank you. Robert says, me too, Gabrielle. Bless you to Beth. And Gabrielle says, Robert Hearts. Mary says, nice to see you. Have a lovely time. Gabrielle says, oh, wow, Ian, that's crazy. I've no desire to be in an apple.
You know, it's got some very useful stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
from
besides, we are now out of time. So
okay.
we should talk about this later because we're coming up. We're at an hour and a half. So we need to get going, guys. So maybe you can bring it up next time and we'll talk about those exercises or something. All right? Gabrielle says, okay, sounds fun. Maybe I want to visit other countries in the astral. That sounds fun. I want to go to Ireland. Awesome. Okay, guys. Robert says, was nice to chat with you all. Thank you, Siofra and Ian. Be well. Thank you. Gabrielle says, okay, bye, guys. Beth says, bless you, Robert. Ian is saying goodbye. I am saying goodbye, too. Ian says, blessed be all. Thanks for your participation. That was fun. Fun show. All right. Carla says, awesome. Thank you guys. Much love and blessed day. Robert says, kisses.